All right, cool. We can get started. So, welcome to the course selection presentation. Uh, Today's agenda is very simple. We'll go over courses, AP courses, especially weighted courses and how each course is weighted on AP exams, honors courses, and how they are impacted in the UC admissions process and other admissions processes. Alongside that, we'll talk about AP versus honors courses, what are the graduation requirements, and some sample course pathways for computer science majors, medicine majors, and humanities major. And then we'll cap it off with a quick Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll go over them at the end of the session. All right, let's dive right into it. We'll start with the weightage of courses. Some courses are weighted while others are not. And all AP courses are weighted. Any AP course by the University of California, all of them are weighted, including some honors courses, which are also weighted in the college system. And to find out which courses are weighted in your high school or in your particular area, you can use this link right here. This presentation will be shared at the end of this session. But you can click on this and then it'll guide you to where the course is, which courses weighted on, which courses are not. So majority of the courses for at least the UC system, they're weighted on a 5.0 scale. If they are weighted, compared to the regular 4.0 scale, which is the non-honors courses. And realistically, all colleges calculate the GPA much differently than some of the other UCs that we have in California. And so if you're always wondering what your GPA is for that college, it's best to go to that particular college's website and check out, do they weight GPA? Do they gather non-weighted GPA? Or if they do weight it, how do they weight it? What is the system? And the UC calculation GPA is much different than for example, Stanford GPA and MIT GPA calculations. And of course, there's a lot of different links available on the internet that help you calculate each individual college's GPA and if they weight it or not. Right. We'll go to the AP courses introduction slide right here. And as you can see, AP courses are college level courses. Many people that transition from 9th grade to 10th grade are always wondering, should they even take an AP course and how beneficial it is? Definitely, it is pretty beneficial as you get into taking an AP course, taking a college level course in high school. And so there's two benefits to, or more like three benefits to it. One, it'll prepare you for college, as all the college courses are at that same rigor. Second, it'll prepare you for that particular subject, and it'll help in the college admissions process as it is a weighted course. Alongside that, the course in itself has an APA exam, which you take on a scale from 1 to 5, and it helps in terms of standardized testing. So AP courses are something that a lot of people debate on, whether you should take them, whether you should not take them, how many should you take, how many would be like the maximum you can go to. Well, all this depends on each student. Each individual student is different and has a different capability that they can cope up with. One student might only be able to handle one AP course, while others might be able to take all 6 in that year and still manage to get that same grade or get that same free time and whatnot. And it all depends on the student and how they can manage their time and get that course done properly. And so when considering taking an AP course or not is very, very important to see if you can cope up with it, if you have the ability to take that course, still manage to have free time, still manage to have time for extracurriculars and other outside studying or more like free time, relaxation time, so you can get on top of your work and still live a healthy life. Like I said, AP courses are weighted on a 5.0 scale, so it's much different than a regular non-honors course. So I'll give an example here. Let's say if you take AP World History, and you get a B in AP World History, compared that if you put that in your application, that'll be considered an A as a weighted course, because um, a 5.0 or a B is a 4.0 on a weighted scale, right? Which means it's an A in a weighted course. That being said, you when you take an AP course, you don't want to risk getting a lower GPA just so you can show the colleges that you have taken extensive amount of AP courses and you're trying to display rigor, right? You want to make sure that you have the ability to cope with your classes, maintain that good grade, the good GPA, and still manage to show that you have rigor in your course applications. All right, so there's three options for courses, for AP courses in particular. One, you can self-study them. Two, you can take them in your high school, in your class, between one of your 1 through 8 periods, 1 through 7, 1 through 6, depending on the high school. Or you can take it at an outside location like UC Scout and Elite, and you can still get the units for that. So this chart, this table really displays what the benefits of each individual studying technique and how it's useful for college. So if you look at the first technique, which is self-studying, which is basically you're not getting any outside help. You have your own prep, you have your own classes, you teach yourself the curriculum, and then you go and register for an exam. What this helps you do is you gain college credit, but it will not go on your high school transcript, meaning that when you apply in your high school, you have your specific transcript with your 6 periods. That even though you still study that course, that will not consider to your high school transcript. And this being said, since you are self-studying and it's not being taken by the during your high school or like in your high school itself, your exam seat may not always be guaranteed. Of course, you can register, but the priority is given to students that are already enrolled in that class that are taking it in high school. Now, if that's clear enough, we can go to the second option, which is taking the course in high school. What this means is that it'll be considered in your high school transcript because you're taking it from between 1 through 6 periods. It's in your high school transcript because you've taken the course, you've gotten a grade for it for both semesters, and you're getting the college credit for it. And what this means is that you'll have to take all the tests, you have to take all the homework assignments in class, and they're all done in your high school time. Now, if you move on to the third option, which is outside location like UC Scout and Elite, this is where things vary a little bit differently. You can take the course at a particular, I would say, UC specified course or area like UC Scout, which provides college credit because it's approved by UC Scout, or sorry, by UCs, but it's still only considering your high school transcript, considering that you're still taking it outside. Now, if you take it at UC Scout or Elite, it's like a mix of both your high school and self-studying, where you have practice tests, you have some homework assignments, but it's like less rigorous and it's more like once a week type of thing. And it's not like always every single day you have homework assignment, every single week you have a test. Sorry about that. And again, the same thing is still here. Exam seat is not guaranteed at your school since you're taking it outside. All right, we can move on to the next slide. And basically what this slide is that AP exams are state organized tests, or a more like college board organized test. And at the end of the AP course, you take the AP exam, right? So it's not optional, but but highly recommend you should take the test, and you must pay. So the fee 95 is changed, depends on the exam you're taking. It can vary between 95 to 145, $150 for each exam. So of course, once you sign up, you're basically booked in for a slot. And if you do cancel, there is a cancellation fee. And so you might not want to like, you might want to think very carefully if you want to take the AP exam or not. And this is generally given every year in May. So 2 months from now, every single AP course is going to be administering an AP exam. And these are either held in person or online. Majority of times it is online. And so in person is, I would say, like, let's just take, for example, AP European history, where you have your subject criterias, where you have your LEQ, your DBQ, your SAQ, and your MCQ, and then they're all done in that 3 to 4 hour time slot that you're given. So a question that I'm always asked is, why take the AP exam? Well, most colleges grant the credit if you get a passing score in an AP exam. So a passing score generally means a 3 or above, so 3, 4, or 5 is considered passing for a college. And that way, if you do get that score on the AP exam, you can get the credit for that college class. Now, um, unlike unlike high school classes where your grade is your class is dependent on like a grade, was A, B, C, D, or F. It's on a scale of 1 to 5, and 1 being you failed, 2 also being that you're below average, 3 means that you've passed, 4 means above average, and 5 means excellent or mastery in the particular topic that the AP exam is on. So now that we've talked quite a bit about AP exams, we can transition into honors courses. And now honors courses are tough, but they're slightly easier than the AP courses as they're not always considered to be college prep courses. Oftentimes honors courses do seem to have some sort of rigor, definitely much harder than regular class. So for example, if you take English 9 honors, it will be a significantly harder class than just English regular, right? But again, taking an honors course is also a great way of showing your course rigor and your challenge, that you're challenging yourself to take a more rigorous course. And even though honors courses are much, like I would say, show rigor, majority of them are considered on the same 4.0 scale. There are some that, particularly for the UCs, count from a 5.0 scale. And again, that should be checked out with this link here, and to see if a single or course is dependent on a 5.0 scale or 4.0 scale. So now the difference between okay. So the difference between honors and AP courses is that AP courses are considered for college credit, and honors courses are not oftentimes. Even if you pass in an honors course, for example, principles of engineering honors, I would have to still take or I wouldn't get college credit for that. It would just go on my high school transcript, and it would show to the colleges that I took a much more rigorous course than many other peers at my school. Of course, taking an AP or an honors course shows or like portrays that you're willing to challenge yourself. But I always mentioned this before, but you don't want to risk your GPA to show more rigor. GPA is definitely extremely important, and is much more important than taking 6 or 7 APs, which you cannot handle. And realistically, the most significant factor in which an AP exam or I would say a college board compares a course is through the curriculum, right? So college board administers all of the AP exams, and they create all the curriculum for each of the AP courses. And so they have a beautiful website which shares every single unit and what they're going to cover in that unit. And so the curriculum in itself is much more in depth and goes, I would say it's much more harder than a regular course or an honors course. However, a few benefits for taking an AP course is, 1, it helps you prepare college. 2, is good for your college credit, and 3, it shows rigor. So this is the high school requirements. If you notice that this is throughout majority of the high schools in California, you need to take 4 years of English. That's required for all 4 years of your high school. You need to take half a semester of health. This varies school to school. You need to take 3 years of math. Recommended for, but you need to take 2 years of math. And this depends on each individual high school. So some colleges let me repeat that. Some high schools say that you only need to take algebra 1 and then whatever math course you can take, it's okay. UC specifically wants you to take algebra 2 or higher and at least 3 years of math. Same thing for PE. You need 2 years of PE, 1 to 2 years of sciences, 1 year of biology sciences, so another science. You need to take either world or European history, US history, or government history. So you need to take 3 years of history. And then you also need to take one world language, or I would say like an extra elective type of thing, which is most likely fulfilled with a world language. And then you need to take electives. And this would equal to be your 230 and 230 course credits, which means that you can graduate high school. All right, so if this is clear, we can go over some sample pathways. So, oops. Yeah. I'll explain really quickly what each sample pathway is and what each sample pathway does, right? So, for example, you have 6 courses, 6 periods, and each period is right here: course 1, course 2, course 3, course 4, course 5, course 6, and then there's 0 period, which is course 7. Now, it is my understanding that not a lot of high schools offer 0 period anymore. So this is definitely something that you should consider. When coming with these course pathways, some courses or some high schools do offer 0 period. So keep that in mind. All right, so before we go into the course pathways, I want to quickly explain the math and what math you have to take to get where. So it all begins with middle school. You start off with, in 7th grade, if you're taking accelerated math, which is this pathway right here, you do algebra 1 in 7th, geometry in 8th, and then you do algebra 2 trig, or GeoAlgebra 2 trig in 9th. Then you do pre-calculus algebra 2 trig in 10th, AP Calc, AB or BC, and then you take AP Stats. Now, it depends on another pathway. In 8th, you can take just regular math, and you can get an elective or accelerated math course right here, where you take algebra 1 in 8th, you take geometry algebra 2 in 9th, algebra 2 pre-calc in 10th, and then AP Calc in 12th or 11th. And then there's a regular pathway. Let me show it to you. And then there's a regular school pathway where you do the algebra 1 in 9th, geometry in 10th, algebra 2 in 11th, and pre-calc in 12th. So this is the math pathway. Now, when you do something like this, these are the 3 pathways. This is double accelerated, single accelerated, and regular math pathway. If that clarifies things for everyone. Cool. Same thing for science. It starts out with living earth or physics in the universe, then chemistry, then a science, so AP physics, AP chem, AP bio, all that, and then another one of those. Now, let's say if you were to take AP or physics in the universe in 9th, then you have to do living earth, then you can take chemistry, and then you can take your AP science class. Whereas if you take living earth in 9th, you can do chemistry in 10th, then you have 2 choices for AP sciences. Again, this is the list of AP sciences you can take in 11th and 12th grade right here. So you can take AP environmental science, AP physics 1, bio, chem for 11th grade, whereas in 12th you can take AP Bio, Chem, Environmental Science, Physics 1, Physics C. Um, and this depends on your Physics C depends on your enrollment in calculus or not. Cool.
Okay, so now we're going to be going into the foreign language pathway. And Preet, just one thing, could you go back to the last slide 1 second?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Preet clarified this, but one thing to keep in mind is that if you do take the physics in universe, I know it depends from district to district, but at least for American high school, as he mentioned, you only get one AP science in junior year, which is technically a disadvantage. So if you don't have a specific inclination to physics, you'll always cover that same material in AP physics, then it's probably in your best interest to start with Living Earth to just get one more AP science in junior year. But yeah, can we move on? Okay, so now we'll be going into the foreign language pathway. So usually in Fremont Unified, students usually take Spanish or French. In school, those are the only two that are available. So there's three cases that usually happen. Students either start Spanish 1 in 7th grade, 8th grade, or 9th grade. Some start in 10th grade, but that's too late. That's not recommended. So what for Spanish 1, if you start in 7th grade, you can essentially finish Spanish 3, which is the requirement for UC admissions. And then for the rest, obviously, the later you start, you finish 1 or 2 years later. And then after Spanish 3, you have the option to do AP Spanish, which is obviously an AP course. And there is an AP exam for it. So just for context, it is much harder than Spanish 3, but it does look very, very good because it shows continuation. And it shows that you're actually interested in the language and not just, taking it to fulfill the requirement. So in this case, I think pre took AP Spanish last year and I'm taking it this year. So if you guys have any questions about that, you guys are feel free to ask. And then for French, it's slightly different. So there's 4 levels, but French 4 honors is a weighted course. And then after French 4 honors, you can take AP French, which is an AP course. And then so Spanish and French are offered at school, but some students also take Chinese outside, and there is an AP Chinese exam as well, which they get credit for. I don't think that applies to many people here, but that's just something to mention.
Yeah. Also a requirement, a UC requirement to take a world language outside. So sometimes students don't want to take either French, Spanish, or Chinese. So they take a language like Telugu, Tamil, Hindi, but they don't take the AP exam because sometimes it's not offered. But I know that there's AP Hindi offered outside of school as well.
Yeah, okay, next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah. So now we're just going to be going over some major based pathways that you can take. And keep in mind, this is very specific to Fremont Unified. There are some commonalities between other districts, but if you are in outside district, just take this as an example. This will probably not apply to your students. So in freshman year, if you are interested in a science major, now they don't have the option for Living Earth honors. You can only take Living Earth the normal course as a freshman. And then all the other courses are pretty much consistent considering you're taking Spanish 1. And then, yeah, ICS is Intro to Computer Science, which is something important to keep in mind, that it is relevant to computer science, obviously. And then as a sophomore, all the courses pretty much stay the same. There's honors courses, obviously, and then specific for junior year, for a computer science major, you would be taking AP Physics. APENG is AP English, AP US History, AP Calculus, which it's recommended to take Math AP for computer science, and then AP Chem. All the AP sciences are just examples. You can obviously take any other AP or any other class you want. And then as a senior, you could take AP Physics C, and then the rest as listed, and AP CSA. There's 2 CS APs, AP CSA and CSP. Preet, if you want to elaborate more on those two.
So, there's actually so many different paths that you can go into. And if we were to do that, I'd spend the entire like hour just talking about this. But if I summarize it very quickly, this is just one of the many pathways for a computer science major to do well in. So for example, you have to start off with your accelerated math. You have accelerated math. You take your health, so you cover your health requirement. You have Spanish one. You take your PE. Then you go into your sophomore year. You take Chem honors, AP World History, English 10 honors, pre-calc algebra 2 trig, which is pre-calc honors. And now in your junior year, see, you have to take only two sciences. So this is where you start actually like thinking about what you want to do, and you want to like play around with your schedule, right? Um, Majority of the students take AP, or they get rid of Spanish, or they get rid of AP chemistry, and then they take AP computer science principles, which is the more like the not exactly prerequisite, but it's like a course before you take APCSA, Computer Science Advanced. Um, and this means that when you do something like this, it means that you haven't taken a single language before high school. That's why you have to spend all 4 years doing Spanish or your French or whatever language you're doing. That being said, this entire schedule changes if you don't have one of these, or if you want to do a different course, or you don't want to take a particular course, something along those lines. And so all that varies depending on student, depending on the course availability, depending on what they currently have and what they plan to go in the future. So yeah, we can talk more about that after during the Q&A if you guys want any advice or help on that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we can move on to the next slide. Okay, yeah, and then as Preet mentioned earlier, at many schools, I believe in Fremont Unified, I don't think there's a zero period option, but maybe some schools do outside of the Fremont Unified School District. So in that case, you would be able to complete PE in your zero period because you are required to do 2 years of PE for Fremont Unified. So you would just complete your PE on top of um IED and POE honors, which are electives, but at American high school, at least, if you take those courses, then you have to postpone PE for another or for junior and senior year, or however else you want to move them around. But in the case of a zero period, you do have the option to come to school like 1 hour early and complete PE so that you don't have to deal with it in junior and senior year. But yeah, pretty much the courses do stay the same, but IED is Introduction to Engineering and Design, and ICS is Introduction to Computer Science, but POE Honors is a weighted course that sophomores have the opportunity to take. And at American based, I'm assuming many of the students here are from American, it is considered a very hard course. But if you do take it, you gain a lot of experience, and it's just a very good exposure to engineering. Preet, do you have anything else on POE?
Yeah, so I took POE my sophomore year, and POE wasn't that bad. Really, it's just the teacher that's sort of like iffy. But for me and a few of my friends, POE was super easy, super simple. It's just hard for certain students because the teacher doesn't like them. So just plan around that if you want to do POE at American. I don't know about other schools, but generally the concept is very straightforward.
Yeah, so that pretty much covers the with zero period for computer science, but keep in mind that this changes a lot. This sample schedule also doesn't cover some of the other requirements. I believe the F requirement is not covered in this schedule. So like don't use this schedule to design your high school. But yeah, this is just an example.
The F requirement, so F requirement
Oh,
is additional,
IED,
right?
right?
So yeah, IED does cover in this
Yeah.
particular schedule.
But yeah, but in the previous schedule, I believe it did not. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Next slide. Okay, so in the case of a medicine major, there aren't like very specific courses you can take freshman and sophomore year. You would just be completing your health and then your normal courses. But you do have Living Earth. In at American high school, you don't have the option to take Living Earth honors anymore. And then as a sophomore, you would either do chemistry or chem honors. Chem honors is a weighted course, so it is preferable. And then you would take your other normal classes. And then as a junior, you would get the option to really show your interest in medicine through your courses. So many students take AP chemistry, AP bio, AP environmental science, etc. Preet, could you move back? I think it skipped slide. Yeah, and then as a senior, you would also be taking more APs and completing requirements, but also there's another course that you have the ability to take as a junior and senior at American high school, which is AP or anatomy and physiology. So as a junior, you can take the first part of anatomy and physiology, and then as a senior, you can take advanced anatomy and physiology, which is a weighted course. So that does look good for your exposure to medicine. I believe there's also, or there are other courses that you can take outside of school. Something called ROP. I believe we'll be going into that later on. Next slide. Okay, yeah. And then in the case of a humanities major, it pretty much stays the same. Except in junior and senior year, you are able to play around with your schedule and take courses like journalism, marketing, etc., to show your interest in humanities. So yeah, pretty much stays the same. Next slide. Okay, so completing a course pathway. So completing a course pathway, as we showed with the three examples before, is very important to show your interest in well, first of all, completing a course pathway specific to your career interest is important. And secondly, for example, if you have Spanish, we would recommend that you don't just stop at Spanish 3, because then it just shows that you're doing it to complete the requirement, but instead take AP Spanish. Though it is pretty challenging. If you are American, we have a teacher named Mr. Navarrete. He's a very good teacher and he teaches very well. So it is definitely not impossible, and it shows that you're interested in completing the course as a whole. And then also try not to have a gap between your course path. So for example, if you're taking Spanish 3 as a freshman, then try to complete AB Spanish as a sophomore so that you don't forget information and it just looks better continuity wise. Yeah, next slide. Okay, yeah. And then there's also a couple of other options that you can do outside of just the normal high school courses. So as you might have noticed in the sample pathways, there are similar courses between pathways for all three majors. So to differentiate yourself even more from just the courses in high school, you can take courses at the community colleges local to you. So I believe local to Fremont, there's Ohlone, De Anza, Santa Clara, or no, not Santa Clara. There's other community colleges as well, where you can take courses to show your interest and passion in your specific major. So for example, if you're interested in computer science, you can take a Java or Python course at a community college like Foothill. And we have information on the we have information on the community colleges on the slideshow, which you guys will have access to later. And then yeah, so we will also be having a session on community colleges and online high school courses soon. So just please stay on the lookout. That will have more information on how you guys can do these courses for your high school. Next slide. Okay, yeah, so that pretty much concludes it for this session, but just keep in mind that we have a YouTube channel where you guys can watch videos. That we have a bunch of short videos where if you want details about certain topics, you can find them there. And then on Saturday, March 11th, we have our second session, which is what it takes to get into college series. So essentially, we'll start off with what it takes to get into Stanford, where we will compile data from students who have gotten in and basically share perspective on what's important to get in and what things you need to do. And then in case you haven't already, please invite all your friends and family to the group chat just so that, they get access to the same knowledge that you all do too. Next slide. Oh, okay.
And yeah, that's it for the presentation. I know we try to keep our presentation short today because I know a lot of people have a lot of questions. And so we want to spend as much time as possible for questions portion. So I'll stop the recording here.